All right, so what's up, man? How you feeling?
I'm okay. I'm not much for pleasantries. Can you tell everyone why we're here? What do you want to talk about?
So firstly, I was gonna ask you if you had any questions specifically for me, but the reason why we're here is because of some tweets that you responded to that I kind of wanted to feel you out and get your mindset about.
Okay. And you're Endless Cemetery, is that right?
That's me. Endless Cemetery, all E's, one C, no A's, just like your report card in elementary school.
Okay.
I'm gonna come.
So what's the problem?
Well, you don't have any questions for me?
Nope. I don't have any questions for you. I don't know necessarily what you believe. You didn't really say anything
Right
that you
on.
believe on Twitter besides I think this tweet was from I
this
thought this tweet was from Tommy Lauren when you responded to my tweet.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the only reason I asked that is because a while back you subtweeted me calling me a backstabber. So I
Uh
just wanted to.
that tweet so wait. What? I
Yeah.
subtweeted you calling you a backstabber.
hmm
Can you explain?
It was. I mean, it's not important. We don't necessarily have to talk about it now if you don't want to.
I
But
mean, if it's like a problem, if you think I called you a backstabber.
it's not necessarily something I consider a problem. But I just thought it was funny that you would engage with that situation in the way that you did, but never actually reach out to me. But you tweeted something about how hard it is to make friends in this space because people will stab you in the back, and it was immediately after the hot mic vid with Dylan Burns. So I assumed that it was in reference to that. If it wasn't, then my mistake, and I apologize.
No, chat knows that I don't really talk to anybody. Uh, I do enjoy my distance from other creators. And sometimes it's because other people stab you in the back. Other times it's just you bring people into your life, and that could just cause more issues. I've always been a loner type person, and it is hard to. Do you disagree that it's hard to make friends in these spaces?
No, not at
I
all.
would imagine you feel that way about Dylan Burns. You think he stabbed you in the back or something?
No, I actually, so the thing is like, I actually have had a really easy time making friends in this space. But as far as Dylan goes, if you want my full opinion on how things transpired with him,
I really don't. I
um,
just all I wanted was to know if you think that he stabbed you in the back or something.
oh, okay.
Unless
No,
I guess
I
you
don't,
really feel like it's important to explain to chat.
no, not really, honestly. But, yeah, I don't feel like he stabbed me in the back. I just feel like he was dishonest in the way that he portrayed that situation, is all.
Okay. So what's your problem with me?
I don't necessarily have a problem with you. Like I said, I just wanted to, because you said in that particular tweet, hold on, let me pull it up so we can read it really quick, just so I don't like misquote you or anything.
You
Um,
probably can't pull it up on private
yeah, I
unless
screenshotted
you
it.
took a screenshot. Okay.
I
Here,
did.
let me show chat the offending material. Exhibit A.
So you said these black people grow up in broken homes to parents who never wanted them, then unfortunately make it to an age old enough to tweet just to hate on people being in the happy family they never experienced. This is fatherless behavior and jealousy.
Okay.
And I just wanted to know where that comes from.
It comes from this tweet and people who agree with them. The
So,
material and like the image that I provided and the people who agree with them.
well, I mean, obviously, it's you quote tweeted them and direct, like it was a direct response to them. But the question I'm asking you rather is, why say this specifically? Like, why say all of that?
That's how I feel.
Yeah, but why though?
Why? I mean, I'm not necessarily. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not necessarily sure what you're getting at. Are you asking like if I think that like if I have some like evidence that these black people come from like those types of black people come from like bad homes or something, and that's why
Okay,
they tweet like this?
no. So okay, so I feel like we might have been off on the wrong foot because I also saw the title of your stream that was arguing whether or not you're a racist, and I had never called you a racist anywhere.
That's
So I
just
kind of
that's
feel
just
like,
clickbait. Don't worry about it.
oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah. Well, that's
And also, I didn't know exactly what you wanted to talk about. I would
well,
imagine that
yeah.
you think
This
that what I said was in some way could even be racist or gives ammo to racists or something.
well, I
And
mean, it's definitely anti-black.
okay, okay. It doesn't seem the title was too off the actual conversation topic then.
Well, I mean, is it really possible for a black person to be racist to other black people? You could
Yes,
be anti-black, but I don't. How so?
you could. Well, you could dislike black people and be prejudiced against them.
Yeah, but what power do you actually have to negatively affect that person's life outside of like brigading them, which I'm not saying you would do, but
So this is like our issue is that for me, I don't the power that you have over somebody is the interpersonal power that you can make them feel bad and you can be prejudiced against them. It's the same power that any other person has power over somebody else. Like we're social creatures, and so everybody has power over somebody to at least some extent to be able to make them think about something that they are, to give them complexes in the way that you interact with them, and to just be generally shitty to somebody. I mean, everybody knows about bullying.
yeah, I don't disagree with you, but that's always optional. Like I could always, if someone, say for example, is like spamming me with the N word, I could just always call them a fucking idiot and block them.
Well, is your response to cyberbullying and harassment just like turn off the monitor, Lamau?
No, I'm not saying that cyberbullying isn't an issue. I'm just saying that when we're talking about structural racism, I don't necessarily think that cyberbullying is at the top of the list at things that necessarily harmfully affect black people.
It doesn't have to be at the top of the list. It could be at the bottom of the list. Some people may not even think that it's on the list in the first place. I don't think it really matters. It affects people and it hurts them and it can change the course of their lives interpersonally.
Right.
I just
Yeah.
don't. So I didn't bring up
The
structural
thing,
racism.
so yeah, but when we're talking about racism as in like anti-blackness, the whole point, the reason why it stings so hard is because there is a structure of global anti-blackness that negatively harms dark-skinned people. Would you disagree with that?
No.
Okay.
Do you think that black people can play into that just as easily as white people
Absolutely.
can? Okay.
Yeah.
And do
How
you
would you
think that black people
do
can
that?
perpetuate that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But when they do it, it's not racism?
I would think it's anti-blackness, but like I said before, black people don't necessarily have the power to like the way that black people engage with anti-blackness is way different from the way that white people engage in anti-blackness. You understand?
Can you explain?
So white people directly benefit from anti-blackness just as a consequence of cultural hegemony, whereas, excuse me, black people only benefit from engaging in anti-blackness when they can get rewards from white people for doing that.
It doesn't have to be from white people. It could be from like honestly
Well, yeah, you're
anyone or any
correct.
structure.
True, it could be, but what I'm saying is that black people are also just as negatively affected by anti-blackness. It's just a matter of subjectively or from moment to moment how that actually gets applied.
Okay. I think do you think that a Jewish person can be anti-Semitic?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think a black person can be racist?
Yeah, sure. I'll. So if we're referring to racism just as like the belief that one race is superior to another, and we're completely ignoring power structures, then sure, yeah, black people can be racist.
Okay. For it's I think these can be like two separate things. I think we can have the analysis of structural issues and the way in which they can interact with people and like ruin their lives and things along those lines. We can talk about interpersonal and institutional, and they can like go hand in hand and they can be one without the other sometimes. And I think that's like all the same. And I think it's the same things. The only thing is that for me, it's like it's the okay. So to explain it, is the difference between somebody who has a plan of running over people on the sidewalk, but they have the option between hopping in either like a Prius, or they have the option of hopping in like you ever played Sonic? You know that big semi truck that was like following him
Yeah.
through San Francisco? They can hop
Yeah,
into either of those, and the semi is probably going to do more damage, but you're still running over people on the street.
Right. I get this analogy. The difference being that for one person, like both people can hop in a semi and run over people in the street. The difference being that one person gets paid to hop in a semi and run over people in the street. Whereas when the other person runs over people in the street, they go to jail. Best case scenario.
Um, all right. I'm still for it seems like for the person receiving the tires on their back, I'm not sure how much that would they like care about that in that moment.
Individually, yeah, but when we're talking about stuff like anti-blackness and racism and politics in general, it's not you're not dealing with people individually.
Um, in interpersonal issues, you absolutely are.
In
And that's how a lot of this
interpersonal,
type and that's how a lot of this stuff happens is interpersonally. And so yeah,
yeah,
you would absolutely be interacting
right.
with human beings, and your single interaction with the human beings honestly could be even stronger for you for the way in which you're going to take your life in the future than like institutional things, because a lot of us, it's very easy to abstract institutional harm as opposed to what somebody just said to you while you were walking home on the sidewalk.
Unless it's derived from an institution that harms people.
Sure. And I think black people can quite as easily do that. So honestly, I think the only real thing that's happening is how the other person feels or whatever, or what they like get from it. And honestly, I don't think like your average person would really care. And I personally don't either for like interpersonal issues. It just doesn't seem like it seems like you're talking about the same thing, but with like different words really when it comes down to how your average person can feel about it. And like that's what I'm talking about here.
But that's not how you worded it. You said these black people.
Yes, those types of black people.
Well, what are those types of black people?
The black people well, for one, the black person who said that, and two, the black people who agree with it.
What are
Do
they
you
saying?
think that when I said these black people, I mean, I meant all black people?
No, my concern isn't necessarily with whether you're talking about all or some black people when we're talking about what you said. My concern is that you used all of these tropes that are employed by whites in the construct of anti-blackness. That's number one, but also what did they say? Like, I guess my question to you at this point would be, how did you interpret what these original tweets said that would push you to respond in this manner?
How did I interpret them? I interpreted them as being the type of people for who one care so deeply about bloodlines that they're going to name and shame people who are in happy families for not breeding in the way that they like. It seems like they would like to also from the comments as well. It seems like they would like to have less light-skinned black people. They also feel like this type of stuff is harming and is harmful to black people and the black community, is making us weaker. And these are weak links who are doing the bidding of white people.
What do you think that is?
Why do I think that is?
Mm-hmm.
It could be from a plethora of different reasons. It could be from the YouTube content that they watch. It could be from the types of people who can benefit by getting clicks and revenue from spreading this type of stuff, just like every other conspiracy or hateful thing can be. It could simply be because they were around those types of people, and those are the ideas that are ingrained in them. I don't know. I know somebody brought up at one point in time that apparently there was a concerted effort by white people at one point in time, or I don't know if you want to still say today, to like make black people lighter or something. And so the way in which they're going to be using their generational trauma is to attack just normal people who are in happy relationships with children who are lighter than they would enjoy.
See, that's what's weird to me. Before we get to that, would you disagree that what you said was anti-black?
Nope.
Okay, so there's that. But before we get to this, because I'm not seeing any like prescriptive statements in either one of these tweets. The original tweet, sure, they use Pat Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes as an example, but the thing that they're specifically talking about is melanin, not necessarily black people in general. And the as far as the bloodline thing goes, are you familiar with the concept of Afrofuturism?
No.
So to basically make a very complicated and long issue very short, The idea of Afrofuturism is just the concept of ensuring that African diaspora people exist in the future. So, knowing that part of the project of white supremacy was to lighten people up, right? It's not just like a conspiracy theory or something like that. It's something that they actually talked about. And knowing that colorism only affects people of dark skin. That's why we have skin lightening creams. People like Stardust have admitted to have lightened in the past, right? Knowing that these things exist as part of a larger structure and knowing what we know about, like I said before, cultural hegemony, where it's not something you have to necessarily be consciously aware of or try to do. It's just something you do as a consequence of the society you live in. That's something that can happen. And like I said before, I don't see anything prescriptive in these tweets. I don't see anything about how other Black people should operate. Maybe in the replies, I didn't go that far, and I'm sure that there's other people who would do that. I wouldn't agree with them. So I feel like we have the same take in the regard of.
Wait, one moment. This is very interesting to me. So I asked this question to Aston Mack last night because he wanted to speak as well. So let's say, do you know anything about my background? You know how I grew up?
Yeah, we were on a panel together where you said that you were kind of military brat, and correct me if I'm wrong, but on that panel, did you not say that you didn't necessarily heavily identify with your Blackness at the time?
It depends on what you mean by like heavily identify. I don't think about it super often. And it's not like a massive part of my brand. If somebody was to ask me about me and I was going to give them like pieces of me, it would be about like things that I've done and things that I enjoy and the people I've been around, and not
you don't think that your Blackness isn't like super crucial, super important about you?
It can be to the ways I'm viewed by other people, but to me myself, no.
Okay. Well, why is that?
I like being Black. I would not like to change it if I had the anti-Black button.
Sure.
But it's just not. I don't think about it that often. I'm not sure if I can give you an answer of like exactly why. It's just not very. I just don't really care.
So it bothers you when other people do?
That is a leap in logic. No.
Well, I mean, I'm reading this tweet here of you like responding in a particular way to people saying that they want their kids and their grandkids to be Black, like dark skinned Black.
I think it's not because of the Blackness. It's because of the super weird, creepy, controlling nature of trying to coerce your children and grandchildren into breeding the way that would make you happy. I don't see any difference between this and like, here. Can I ask a question? What like before we go too far, two like questions, okay, and then I'll answer all your questions.
Sure.
If I were to make a tweet, okay, because yeah, I grew up in New York, I grew in Missouri and St. Louis, and I grew up in Kentucky. Not exactly, but I don't have to dox myself. But
yeah.
With that being said, in a lot of the areas I've been around a lot of white people. And when I go to like Atlanta, Georgia or something, or I go to like North Carolina, we visit some family and they live in what I can only describe. You know what? Here's how I'll describe it. It's like when I go to see them, it's like what's his name? I was gonna say Kevin Samuels. That's not right. Kendrick Lamar. It's like To Pimp a Butterfly, sort of like an album cover, but in real life. Okay, there's like a church's chicken, and then there's like a lot of like poor infrastructure, and then there's like kids riding on beat up BMX bikes, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to walk the streets after the street lights come on. Okay, and that's where I go visit some family every now and again. If I were to make a tweet and it was like, let's take a picture, okay? I'm just describing to you the picture. These are not words that I'm saying. It's a picture of like stereotypical, everyone's dressed as like early 2000s Soulja Boy, okay?
So it's hood.
Sure, they look like they're in a saggy pants, they bumping in they lowrider, and I go, man, I'm so glad I didn't grow up like these people, and I want to make sure that my family never ends up like, my bloodline never ends up like this. This is insane. Would you feel the same exact way you feel about that tweet as you would if I made that hypothetical tweet?
No,
It would not feel the same. Why would that be?
because we're not talking about like so in response in specificity, the reason why I would feel differently about that is because we're not talking about like a global project to turn black people into white people. Um you're basically just poverty shaming at that point.
You don't have to be poor to engage in that type of culture.
In hood culture,
Yeah. Absolutely. Honestly, I would even bet that a lot of people that engage in quote unquote hood culture didn't come from hoods at all. The people actually, don't you agree with this? Like the main people who consume like quote unquote hood culture are just like suburban white boys who love
no, because the
bumping
hood
like
still exists.
Playboy
Because
Cardi.
the hood still exists at the end of the day, and it exists for a reason.
Okay, but I'm talking about the sort of culture that is sold and what people like and aspire to. I'm not talking about like if hoods still exist.
I'm confused because you were talking about the people being specifically black that you would take this picture of.
They would be specifically black, just like the picture that they took was specifically a darker person breeding with a lighter skinned person and them having an issue with it.
So okay, you kind of lost me. Could you just start from the beginning? So you're saying that if you took a picture of yourself in the hood,
No. If I just took a picture of like a stereotypical image of just like a hood, like saggy pants, like lowrider, big chains, or whatever, Gucci belt sort of people, and some of them may even be throwing what some people may even think to be like gang signs or something. Okay,
but they're all black.
sure, they're all
Like
black.
dark skin black
Sure,
though.
they're all dark skinned black.
Okay.
And I say, I'm so glad that I didn't grow up like these people or like this. I sure hope I'm gonna fight hard to make sure my bloodline doesn't end up like them. That like ellipses, that's insane. Would you feel the same way that you would about that person's breeding tweet as my tweet about like people in the hood?
No, because that tweet will be literally anti-black.
That's anti.
You're
Elaborate.
you're literally saying you don't want your kid to grow up like the hood black people. How is that not anti-black when we know the hood is a product of black people and their resistance and their experiences in white supremacy?
I don't know. Personally, I've talked to a lot of people who come from the hood, and a lot of them are like, I wish I never grew up there and I'm leaving the second I can.
Yeah, but that doesn't really address why the hood exists in the first place.
Okay, that's all right. That's fine.
Whereas we know that this type of shit that we're looking at, while the people doing it might not have that in mind, because we agree on that particular like idea, let these niggas live, they're happy, right? But that said, it is like the idea that you would take issue with dark skinned people wanting to make sure that there are dark skinned people in the future is that's what I'm trying to figure out, honestly.
It's okay. So the thing is, all right. So I find it. I don't think we're ever going to agree on this because of like the way you answered that question. It's just like it seems like the way in which we engage in the world is just so fundamentally different. I don't think we're ever going to agree on this. But if we're going to take on this, okay, do you think that this is a part of a planned effort to get to exterminate exterminate black people when it's cheered on when black people and white people or black people and other races have relationships?
So the I got to answer this kind of long form, right? Because the picture that they used wasn't of a black person and a Filipino person, or a black person and an Indian person, or a black person and a Malaysian person. It's very specifically black and white. And this is kind of the problem that we run into when we talk about interracial relationships to begin with, is that it's yet another aspect of white supremacy where white people have to center themselves in everything, including black culture. Case in point, like you were just describing, hood culture, quote unquote, was commodified by white people to be bought and sold by and to other white people. And we're still in the hood. which is not fair, right? So when we talk about stuff like the quality of melanin in someone's skin in reference to racial, for dire want of a better term, racial mixing between black and white people, do I think that these white women that these black men are engaged with have it at the forefront of their conscious minds to lighten up the races so that there'll be less dark-skinned black people in the world? No, I don't think that. But it has to be stated, which is why I don't necessarily think that the people who have the opinions that they do in these tweets are particularly harmful to black people or anyone else. It must be stated that one of the goals of white people or of white supremacy was the lightening of the races, right? The Mormons talked about it, as stated previously. Even in cultures that don't have white people, there is colorism, right? So there's skin lightening in India. Filipino people, they don't like to be out in the sun because that makes their skin darker, right? So when we're talking about not just blackness, right? Because that's another pitfall for us too, is defining blackness by melanin quality. When we have people like Angela Davis, right? These types of people. We're not talking just about black people as the monolith. We're talking very specifically about people with high melanin quality, chocolate niggas, dark skinned niggas, right? Midnight niggas, people like us, right? Do you or do you not want people that look like us to exist in the future?
It is of no consequence to me. I couldn't care less.
Really?
Not at all. Because because it's not my decision to make. This is it for me. This sounds exactly like if you're asking me, you know what this sounds like? This sounds like conservative conspiracy of like the LGBT. You've seen this, where it's like, look at the trends of LGBT people. Soon, by like 2060, everyone will be gay and straight people will be gone. All because of this wokeness, and we won't breed anymore. And soon the human population will come to a rest because we'll be too busy having gay orgies instead of breeding as God intended.
Can I ask you a question, like
That's
a serious question?
Wait, I want to finish this. That's exactly what this
ahead.
sounds like to me. It's not my job, and I couldn't care less how people decide to breed. I don't think that it's very important for them to at the forefront of their mind when it comes to choosing partners for their prodigy to be of their same melanin quality or quantity, I guess we'll say. It's not important. I couldn't care less if people choose that way. And I feel like when I start to do that, we start to get into a weird authoritarian eugenic sort of mindset where some people should be made and some people shouldn't.
No one is doing that though. They're making a personal decision, and you're literally taking
You're
issue
right.
with
They are making a personal decision. So I think it's incredibly weird for me to comment and tell them what I think should and how they should or should not be using their seed. Because by definition, you're saying that if I think that I want there to be as many specifically dark-skinned people, that it is unethical and wrong for black people to be race mixing with people lighter than them, right?
That is not.
Yes,
true
you
at all.
are. That exactly what you're
black
saying.
people, where in these tweets, or did I say that black people shouldn't race mix with white people? Because no one has ever said that.
I'm talking about the mindset that this takes on. You are, by definition, if you say it is good for, do you think it's, all right, let me ask you then. Do you want more people? Do you want there to specifically, do you care a lot about there specifically being more dark-skinned people in the future? And if there's not, is that neutral or is that bad?
So if there's no dark-skinned people in the future, then that means that the goal of white supremacy was realized. That means that if that were the case in the present, I wouldn't exist. So yeah, that kind of has I have a problem with that.
Doesn't this seem like cutting your nose to spite your face?
To ensure that people who look like me exist in the future?
It seems like the only reason you're doing it is not because it is important or in some way like a good thing. It's just because other people don't want it. And so it just seems like turning your nose up at something because it just seems like you do something because someone told you not to, and not because you actually want to do it. That's the weird part to me.
It's not just that they don't want me to do it. They're actively trying to kill all of us. That's what anti-blackness is. You understand that, right?
Okay. And you don't have to die to not, for your children to not be, for more people to not be darker skinned in the future. You could just like happily be married to somebody who's lighter than you and have children.
But my kids would be light skinned. They would still be black, and that's kind of the point, right? Is
Who
that
cares?
as a black person, I care a lot, because if I have
That's
kids
weird.
with someone who might have family members who hate them, that's going to affect their development. Deeply.
You should work
I
on the relationships between your family, and if you can't, you should cut them out of your life, because you're their parent and you have full stewardship over how they're raised, and if somebody is hurting them, you should cut them from that child's development in life.
How is that fair to the child?
How is it fair to the child? Because you're taking control of how they are raised and you're making the best decision for them. Same way,
By
like you
cutting
take
off
them to
members of their family
that hate them. Yes, 100%.
when I could just not fuck people
Not
who
have
hate black
them?
people. Not have them, not at all. But I could choose to have kids with someone who is going to have family members that understand the black experience and
You would
and are amenable
change
to it.
who you love and who you would have children with because like your aunt is racist.
So I think we're also getting fucked up with who we love and who we have kids with. Because I don't know about you, I like to play in the snow, right? But I don't
That
have
is
kids specific.
That's an incredibly weird way to say it.
I bet. But as I said, I have dipped my whip in the mayonnaise many a time. I don't have kids though. Why? Because there are consequences to being raised mixed race, and mixed race people will tell you that.
Do you think there should be
That's-
less mixed race people?
I don't feel one way or the other about the existence of mixed race people. I think.
Do you think
that
the world is worse when more mixed race people are in the world?
No, I do not. I don't
Do you
care
think the
about
world would
mixed
be
race
better
people.
if there would be more dark-skinned people, if it meant that there would be less mixed race people in the world?
No, I think it would be good for dark-skinned people if they continue to exist in the future. And I say that as a dark-skinned person. It would be good for me knowing that people that look like me would exist in the future, because that means that I could exist in the future.
Do you think that it
Likewise-
matters? Do you think it's really important? Do you think it's important, like how things happen as opposed to if they happen in the first place?
What do you mean by that?
So let's say if I don't have a car right now, okay? Because I don't have a car at the moment. It got totaled. So I don't have a car. Do you think the situation around me not having a car would be different if I don't have a car because I sold it because I wanted to be able to put down money to buy a house and now I own a home and that's cool? Or if I don't have, or if I don't have a car, it's not to me. So like, it doesn't really matter if it exists in the world because I don't have it. I don't have access to it.
We're
Like,
not talking about individuals,
wait,
though. We're
trillions
talking about
of
people as a group.
dollars exist in the world, but like poor people still live on the street. So I think it really matters if you have access to it or not. Don't you think? To like the person.
Hold on. This is such a fucking weird analogy.
You haven't
because we're
even been
talking
able
about
to allow
people.
me to finish the analogies to know if it's even like makes sense or not.
It's weird to me because we're talking about access. Why are you talking about access when we're talking about people just existing or not existing?
Because if it's not able to be a part of your life, it might as well not exist in this to your average human being.
So I shouldn't care about whether people who look like me exist in the future because I'll never meet them.
I haven't even been able to finish this yet. Please allow me to
Okay,
finish
sorry.
this.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize.
So like, I don't have a car for one of two reasons. One is because I sold it to be able to put down something on a house, and now I own a house. And another reason is because it was stolen. Do you think that the situations around the cars not being there changes the situation entirely around the car not being a part of my life anymore?
No, not particularly.
No, if it's stolen or I'm able to trade it in for money to use it somewhere else.
So wait, you're losing me because I'm trying to talk about black people existing and we're doing this car analogy. So you're asking me if there's a difference between your car getting repoed or something and you selling your car and making money off of it.
Yes, the car is gone from your life in both scenarios.
But you benefited from one scenario as opposed to the other.
Sure. or even let's say I didn't necessarily benefit. Let's just say, well, let's not count it as a benefit. Let's say I just take the money and then I put it somewhere in a savings account, and I'm
Can
never,
you just
or like an
just
emergency
because
fund, and I'm not able to use
just
it.
for my benefit and chat's benefit, what are you analogizing here?
I'm
Like, what are you trying to compare this
that
to?
question I'm trying to get to is I think it matters how things happen, even though the outcomes can on the surface look the same. If in the future there are no black people, or big air quote black people, super dark skinned people, because
Yeah, I was going to
not
say
because
black people are going to exist, but
for
dark skinned people specifically.
okay, there's no dark skinned people, not for one reason, because they were all systematically genocided, and in the future there's no dark skinned people because they just happen to be around people who love them and who made children who with people who love them who just happen to not have as much melanin as them. I think that's really important. That's an incredibly different distinction. Yes, there'd be less in both instances, but how it happens is incredibly important as opposed to what happens in the first place.
You don't think those two are directly related as a consequence of cultural hegemony in America or in the globe, knowing that anti-blackness is global and that you don't necessarily have to yourself harbor prejudice towards black people to engage in anti-black behavior?
Do you think that having a white wife as a black guy and having mixed race children is anti-black behavior?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page there.
Right.
I just think that it could play into that, but I'm not gonna like I said, cut my nose to spite my face. I'm not going to now.
It's not really doing that though, because you could just as easily, like you're assuming, the assumption here is that I wouldn't just as easily find love and caring and a fulfilling relationship with someone who's also dark skinned like me.
That's so weird.
How?
It's just so weird to take this in and just specifically move yourself from being around and loving certain types of people because like there was and or is an effort to make less dark-skinned people. I feel like
it's weird to want more dark-skinned people to exist, knowing that there is a global project to reduce the number of
change your
dark-skinned
behavior
people?
in the sense that you would like forego relationships with lighter skinned people, yes, and
Who's
like
talking about foregoing relationships? I'm talking about having kids.
and criticize darker skinned people for having sex and children with lighter skinned people. Yes,
They're not doing that though. I
they
feel
are
like you're reading
100. They
away-
are 100%.
maybe in the comments, but I feel like you're reading super far into this when it's
What do you
very
think they
simple.
mean when they say this is insane?
It's insane because the family started black and now it's white.
That's insane. That's wild. That's crazy. That's unfathomable.
White supremacy is insane. Yes.
Having lighter skinned children is white supremacy.
No.
So,
but it is a goal of white supremacy.
Wait. So I want to make sure that we get this in. So we get this down. Okay. So there being more lighter skinned people is white supremacy, but having lighter skinned children, which makes more lighter skinned people and less darker skinned people, is not white supremacy. Is that right?
Rick, can you repeat that? I'm sorry, the cat was screaming.
Sure. Like, so I just think it's really odd. So you said, and tell me if I'm wrong.
Here's the thing very simply, right?
Okay.
Very, very simply.
Sure.
So it doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day. Whoever you want to love, whoever you choose to have kids with, it truly doesn't matter.
It seems
right?
like it matters because you're telling me that you're playing into white supremacist hands by having. Okay,
no, that's not what I'm saying. But
you're not saying that you're playing into
white
white supremacist hands by you being a dark skinned person and having more lighter skinned babies, therefore leading to less darker skinned people because you could have had sex with like a darker skinned person, leading to more darker skinned people. You're saying you're not playing into white supremacy if you do that.
On an individual basis, no, but there is such a thing in I'm thinking Dominican specifically, where you go out of your way. I forget what the term is, something La Raza, where you go out of your way to procreate with lighter skinned people so that your kids will be lighter skinned. That's definitely a thing. And that's something that people can engage in.
Isn't
But
this the same ideology that you just expressed to me before?
huh?
So you said earlier that mixed race people have like bigotry towards them, and that's why I wouldn't have a mixed race person as like a as a baby, because their aunt could be like so racist and that would fuck up their development. How can
For
you as
me
a
personally, yes.
okay, so if you're like a dark skinned person and you're like, man, global blackness is crazy, they're gonna grow up in a racist world that hates them. I don't want to do that. But I do want children. I'm gonna go specifically have lighter skinned children so they don't experience anti-black racism. Is that not literally the same exact thing that you're
I
doing?
mean, yes, that's the end goal is the completion of the project of white supremacy, which is to reduce and eliminate the number of dark skinned people in the world. Yeah.
So do you think that you're like an unwitting an unwitting participant? Do you think that you're like a co-collaborator, even if you may not know, of like white supremacy by having mixed race children?
Not necessarily, no.
Not you see, not necessarily, and then you say you're qualifying a lot, which makes me feel like without the qualification you would say yes.
Because you're talking about groups and then individuals, and you're flip flopping back and forth between the two when there's a very distinct difference between the two. As far as individuals go, love, fuck, and procreate with whoever you want. But in terms of the group
But you're
as a
hurting black
whole,
people.
if excuse me, you're hurting black people by having light skinned kids.
Well, that it wasn't that their position. Like this position, they're like you're
Reading
playing
so
into
far into these
I
tweets
I
that
really
literally
don't
just
think it's
say
that far.
that literally just talking about how the kids don't have melanin, and I don't get how we get that far. You have to
Here,
walk me through that.
sure. Let me ask this question then. Let's say if I take I once again I tweet a picture. I love tweeting pictures. And it's of a noticeably gay person, okay? It's a little gay
Okay.
black boy with a little gay black boyfriend. And I go, man, I never want my bloodline to end up like this. Ellipses. That's just insane. How would you feel about that tweet?
It would be homophobic as fuck, but
That'd be homophobic as fuck? Wow.
But wait a minute, it's homophobic, but you can't one-to-one race with sexual preference, because sexual preference is not necessarily immutable the same way having dark skin is. You understand that, right?
Your sexual preference is a what?
You could go your entire life without anyone knowing you're gay. That same is not true if you're a dark-skinned black person.
Do you not think that like sexuality is a immutable characteristic?
Okay. Do you agree or disagree that there are people who are gay you would have no clue they were gay?
Some people, sure.
Okay. What's the first thing you notice when you look at a person?
I try not to look people in the eyes. I'm scared. They scare me. But I don't know. It could be like their hair, what they're wearing. This isn't a good question to ask for me, because like didn't I say earlier
you
that
don't
like
care
the race
about
isn't
black
that
people
important?
yet, or that you don't care
That's
necessarily
true.
about blackness.
I do not. So true. I do not care about black people.
I worded that incorrectly. You don't put a whole lot of stock into blackness.
My own personal no. But I care about what people care about. So if you think that your blackness is like super important, I don't want anybody to take that from you. That seems like a really important thing to you. And
well, I mean, it kind of seems like you do, considering how you reacted to these tweets.
Well, you're not. Well, that's the thing. You're not worrying about your blackness anymore, are you? You're worrying about your children and grandchildren's.
I'm worried about people like me existing in the future, who
Your
they choose
children
to
are people
procreate
like
with.
you, are they not?
But who they choose to procreate with is their business as well. Did I not say that individually it doesn't matter?
Like
it's just my individual
it doesn't
choice.
seem it seems like a good way to skirt away from responsibility.
I'm not responsible for it because black people aren't a monolith. You understand that, right? So not only am I not responsible for what other black people do, I can't control what other black people do. I can only control what I do.
Okay. And it seems like the way in which you would like to do that would be to influence other people to do what you would like to do. Like tweets like this that we've been talking about. Like this the offending material tweet. Do you not believe that that's like a
where
that
are
they
the
have an
prescriptive-
interest. So this is like
Can
arguing
you-
with
can you
this is like
explain
arguing with
something to
somebody
me?
who doesn't believe in stochastic terrorism. Like you don't have to
Tell me where the
say
prescriptive-
specifically, you don't have to say the prescription because you walk people to the line specifically. You
The
walk
line
people
being that they
you
want
walk
their
people
kids
to
to be
the very
dark-skinned?
line and then you go, well, who knows what could happen? If you tell people that they're living in a country and they're at war, you shouldn't be surprised that they act like they're at war, even though you didn't tell anybody to pick up a gun and kill anybody. Like,
So
there's
you
no
think
reason for
Afrofuturism is equivalent to stochastic terrorism, or at least analogous to
in the way
stochastic terrorism.
in the way that you can in the way that you can bring that into the real world. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And the way in
So
which
if
you
I say, if
the
I
way
say
in which
I
you
don't
like
care,
talk about it to
if
people,
I say
and yeah,
I don't care what my kids do or what anybody else does, I want my kids to be dark skinned like me. That's stochastic terrorism.
there's the prescription. You keep saying that there's no prescription.
There isn't. I'm choosing
is a
my
prescription.
personal choice. How?
That is a prescription. Wait,
It's a prescription to say that I don't care what anybody else does. Where?
that's not it. That's not the part that I'm talking about.
The part that so you have an issue with my personal choices. You have an issue with these people's personal choice.
For one, honestly, yeah. Like if you engage in this type of stuff, yeah, like your personal choices can be pretty fucking bad. 100%.
So why are you
because
seed
they don't
watching, bro?
engage, they don't just talk about this. You're not like a single human being in all of this, okay? You're talking about your spouse, you're talking about children and grandchildren. There are a bunch of other people here who do not get an input, and the way in which you treat them can 100% be disgusting. And like circling back to this, they gave the prescription because the prescription is implied.
It's implied,
like
just a vibe.
any human being can, like, I don't know, this seems like odd to me. And I know for a fact you'd pick it up anywhere else this was happening, but you're making a special exemption for this.
Because anti-blackness is global and blackness.
Okay, so you
is
do make an
very
exemption for
distinct.
this. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Why wouldn't I?
That's bad.
First of all, I'm a dark-skinned black person, so this directly affects me, whether or not people like me exist in the future. That's
No, it
number
doesn't.
one. Okay, it would affect me, right?
No.
If I was going to be born in the future, I would not be born in the future. That's number one. Number two, I'm still not understanding why these people's personal preference. Again, he's talking. I never want my right. 2 generations and a melanin gone from that bloodline. We're talking specifically about bloodlines, right? We're not talking about what black people should do as a whole. They're talking about themselves and their descendants, right? And if they're going to be of the mindset that they need to try to influence who their kids procreate with or whatever, I wouldn't agree with that. But it's really fucking weird to me.
Don't
to
you think they
seed
would
watch.
when they didn't bring up, like, when they brought up the second generation and the kids that they were having? Don't you think that they would have like an opinion on that? Because
mean,
I
they
would
clearly
imagine
do.
what the real issue was that like very light skin or white baby from that darker skinned grandfather, don't you think? And don't all those memes about like the bloodlines getting lighter, don't they always include like the white or like almost white grandchild or great grandchild with the dark skinned grandparents or great grandparents?
Listen to what you just said and what we referenced earlier. It's not about Malaysian people. It's not about Filipino people. It's not about Thai people. It's about white people. Because whiteness is something very specific, especially in contrast to blackness. Why is this like hard concept to understand?
I want to ask this question because this seems very interesting to me. If let's say white supremacy never existed, would you feel the same exact way about the whole like breeding thing?
If there was a specific group that actively devalued dark-skinned people, yeah. That's the whole thing, right? Is that we exist in a culture, whether we're conscious of it or not, that actively devalues melanin and dark-skinned people. So applying value to that as a consequence of that is really fucking weird, when the alternative is to just say, fuck it, if they genocide us, they genocide us. Right?
But with this,
which is kind of your take, right? Because you don't care if dark-skinned people exist in the future.
But that's not genocide.
Then why did they call it that?
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about an individual choice that somebody makes when it comes to who they date and who they don't date and who they procreate and who they do not procreate with. Me, you, Ashton Mack, Umar, that's his name, Umar Johnson, is that right? I've never listened to a single thing from him, but he kind of makes me uncomfortable.
I don't know who that is.
Okay. I don't know. Other
you gotta understand,
other
I'm
Negro
proletariat,
pilled
dog.
people. What?
I drive a forklift 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I don't have the time to pay attention to a lot of these other content creators. I'm not going to hold you. But I mean, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with being a dark-skinned person who values other dark-skinned people and wants their children to be dark-skinned.
I value dark-skinned people.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that I need them or going to, if it happens naturally, like try to push for them to continue existing. That's fine.
The goal of the project of white supremacy was for it to happen naturally.
Do you think that if you're a black person and you have sex with a white person and have lighter skinned babies, are you like a unwitting foot soldier of white supremacy?
No.
How can you not, when you just said that was the goal?
Okay.
Because you keep bringing up this, like, the conspiracy goal to make black people disappear. In the same breath, you're talking about a random black person just having a white spouse. It seems like they have to be working in tandem, even unwittingly, for this to happen. Because otherwise you wouldn't be bringing them up together.
You were the one that brought them up together.
So I just well,
my whole point from the very beginning is that people should be allowed. Okay. So you think that it's weird for people to have preferences as far as what their children look like and who they grew up around. That's obvious, right? I would agree.
Can you say that one more time?
You think it's weird for people to have any type of stock in what their children look like and the family members that they have their children with, right?
I do think it's weird. And the more militant you get about it, the weirder it gets until it reaches peak.
I would agree.
You're a bad person.
I would agree. In a vacuum. The thing is that we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a culture and a society that actively devalues dark skin.
Sure. Wait, let me ask this question. I want to switch it around. Do you think that if you specifically have dark-skinned children, are you fighting back against white supremacy?
Yes, because you're procreating more dark-skinned people.
So
you're doing the opposite of what they want
you
you to
make more dark-skinned people, you're fighting against white supremacy. But when you make more light-skinned people, you're not helping white supremacy.
Because those kids are still black.
But you said, well, dark skin is what was the important part for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not dark skinned, would they? Would they be? The likelihood would be low.
Between a black person and a white person?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure. But that kid would still be black at the end of the day.
Okay. So once again, you're telling me you would be fighting against white supremacy to have dark skinned children, but you would not be helping white supremacy when you have light-skinned children.
Black people having children at all is fighting against white supremacy.
Are you not helping as much? Are you helping less, or are you hurting more than somebody having dark-skinned children?
You are okay. So in terms of black people, you're not really, it's like neutral, because if you're a black person, your kids are going to be black. That's what blackness is.
But we're talking about dark skin here.
Okay, so if we're talking about dark skinned people on an individual basis, it's kind of inconsequential. But yeah, if you, as a whole, as a group, if the majority of dark skinned people decided that they wanted to have kids with lighter skinned people for whatever reason, then that would be the completion of the goal of white supremacy, whether they were conscious of it or not. The thing is that most black people don't operate that way. I care.
My question is, who cares?
I mean,
if that's actually what they want, who cares? Why is it important to like change their mind or like take their hand and tell them you need to do something else? We are at the point where,
first of all, we're not making a prescription. That's number one. Number two, as I said, we are not, as I said multiple times throughout this conversation as well, cultural hegemony means that you don't have to have that goal to complete it. People don't have to be racist to engage in anti-blackness or white supremacy.
Okay, so you are working to complete the complete the goal of white supremacy, but you're not a foot soldier or unwitting.
This is such a dishonest framing of this.
How? This seems like one-to-one to me. Like, how do you help a wrongful cause while also not being an unwitting, like, what's the word for it? It's like a something fool. What is it?
Because your light-skinned kids could still have dark-skinned kids if they choose to date and procreate with dark-skinned people, especially if they're black, because they're going to occupy the same class.
Useful idiot. Thank you. Yeah. Or how are you not a useful idiot to this? I don't know. It's just.
I mean, sure, if you would like to portray it that way, but as stated previously, your kids are still going to be black, which means that in all likelihood, they're probably also going to value darker skin.
Will they? I don't know. It seems like these days a lot of people really, like you explained it. You said a lot of people really like lighter skin. Isn't it like a big thing? Like don't a lot of people hold on pedestals like white girls and like light skin or red bone girls is like the ultimate like female prize?
Yeah, that's very much true. But to pretend like that is equivalent to active hatred of dark skinned people is kind of disingenuous, don't you think?
No, not really. A lot of people can feel that way.
So if someone really likes white people, that automatically means that they hate black people?
Wait. Take it one step back. I want to make sure I heard you right, because I may have misheard you.
So if someone's really into, say, for example, they're super enthusiastic about Irish culture, or fuck it, we'll say white culture, right? Even though we understand what whiteness is.
Really
Does that necessarily mean that they automatically hate all dark-skinned people, hate all black people?
No.
Okay, then. So when we talk about people who are actually marginalized and the target of white supremacy, why does liking them mean that they dislike someone else? As stated before, these people are talking about their own generations.
It's not just liking them.
Okay.
It's like I still don't understand how you don't get the implied prescription here of a sentence like that. And it feels like you understood it when we talk about like other people, when it comes to the same exact situation, when it comes to gay people, or like if I was to make some
because gay people is not an analogy to black people. It's just not. Furthermore, black gay people exist. I know you disagree because you don't understand this shit and it's obvious.
Okay. Yeah, that's just intersectionality though. Okay. Yeah, I know intersectionality exists. You can be at the crossroads of multiple different prejudice and power positions.
The whole purpose of the intersection.
You can be at the intersection of two marginalized positions, which could be black and gay.
So why do we need to talk about gay if we're talking about black then?
I think it's quite easy to make an analogy between two marginalized classes.
It's not because white gay people exist. That's what gentrification is.
What? White people are gentrifying. Wait, can you elaborate, please?
White people find white queer people exist in a weird intersection because they don't get all of the benefits of white supremacy, even though they themselves are white. So what they do is they find other marginalized communities and center themselves in them. And as a consequence of that, they push those other people out. That's why a lot of the most gentrified areas that you see have rainbow flags. This is studied and written about.
All right. Let's even take that as true for a moment.
It is.
Why are you like removing their intersectionality of this issue?
They're white, so they automatically raise the property value, which means that people that can't afford that shit can't live there.
We're not
What
talking
class
about
exists?
gentrification at the moment.
Okay.
So why are you removing their intersectionality? They still are marginalized.
Whose intersectionality?
They're still marginalized even if they are white.
Gay people? White
Yes.
gay people?
Yes.
Because they're not black. They're the opposite of black.
Okay.
I'm not denying their intersectionality.
You are.
I'm very much acknowledging their intersectionality. Did I not at the beginning say that they don't get all the same benefits from white supremacy as other cishet white people?
Sure, but you're saying that they're like so fundamentally different, and once again, I'm still talking simply about the sexuality and or the identity.
Okay, you're memeing now because I know you know the difference between white gay people and black gay people.
I know the difference.
Okay, so then what's this conversation about?
I'm just, we didn't have to get on this part. You could have, all I said was that like, it's pretty easy to.
I mean, you're the one who loves analogies when we're talking about something very simple. So I was just trying to get on your level.
What's wrong? What's wrong with analogies?
We're talking about something that doesn't need analogy.
That feels like anti-intellectualism to me.
It's anti-intellectualism to say that you should be able to speak plainly about things.
That sounds exactly like this is common sense. Why should we like dig
no
deeper
it's
here?
not. I'm not saying it's common sense. I'm saying you can speak about these things without needing to analogize because there is no analog to blackness.
I mean, okay, if you feel that way. I just don't think that we're just gonna agree on that.
It's the truth.
Okay.
Black is very specific in terms of class. Do you not understand this?
Okay. I mean, like, it just like some
you can be
treated
all kinds
worse
of things
than others.
Yes, and black people
groups.
black and indigenous people get treated the worst no matter what intersection they are. Gay, straight, bi, lesbian.
Well, I mean, I guess that depends on like where they are and everything.
No, that's where they exist in the world because anti-blackness is global. White supremacy and imperialism is a global project. Are we really having this conversation right now?
Here, I want to ask this question. Do you think that there are some areas where black people are treated better than gay people?
Do I?
Yeah. Do you think that's possible?
Or that's a weird question because black gay people exist.
I just want to ask.
Black gay people exist.
Sure. What are they like?
So how is that?
What are they like 0.2% of the population or something?
I don't necessarily.
Didn't you say earlier that
number.
You could go your entire life without like being known as like queer or something? So let's say like
the same is not true of being dark skinned black or black.
Okay. So let's say once again, they don't know that there's any gay people. Well, they don't know. Yeah, they don't know if there's any like gay people. Do you think that like there's an area on God's green earth where like anywhere could be like a little town where like black people are treated better than gay people typically?
I truly don't. I can't answer this question because black gay people exist, so I don't understand the question.
Okay. All right then.
Black and gay are not two separate entities. You can be black and gay.
Okay.
The state and the city that I live in is very black and very queer.
All right. I'm not denying that. I actually don't know what to tell you, partner.
Likewise.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think I think when you're marginalized, we can like analogize to other marginalized statuses.
Not with black people.
Exactly.
Because black people exist at the bottom and intersect with all other marginalized communities. Doesn't matter what marginalized community you're talking about, there's black people there and they get treated worse than white people.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about, bud?
Nah, I think I'm about done.
Okay. All right. Have a good night. Take care of yourself, okay?
Likewise, brother. Stay black.
I guess. Was there anything more for me to like touch on? I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Was there anything else that I could possibly say.
This meme is very real.
Like I don't know how to. I don't know. I just don't know how to reach him. I don't know how to reach him. You know. I don't know what to say. If I'm gonna be honest. How do I reach these Negros? I don't know, man. I didn't think we were going to get so stuck on the idea that like you can talk about different things without them being exactly the same. Kindred Reliever, thank you so much for the $10. I appreciate you. People who view the battle against racism as a conflict between races, letting racists set the terms and conditions. Yeah, let's racists set the terms and conditions. The battle against racism should be against anti-racists. Well, sorry, should be against racists versus anti-racists. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. It just seems like the whole, oh, you're not a witting you're not like a useful idiot, even though you are. I feel like we were getting towards the. Oh, no. Oh my goodness. Big Novocaine, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate you for that. Thank you. It's just like I just thank you. I really appreciate you. I just don't I don't know what else to say in regards to this, really. He spent a lot of time denying the logical conclusion of his views. That is true. I think yeah, I think that was like the main thing that I was trying to get at. I don't know, he like didn't like the analogies, but I don't know, I guess I could have explained it that the analogies were to get at the logical conclusion of like what you believe. Cause I just don't understand the idea of being somebody who helps something without knowing it, while also not being a useful idiot for that. I don't know. It just, and the thing is, I didn't even think that was like the hill to die on, right? That didn't seem like the big hill to die on, which is to say that like, yeah, you are being a useful idiot. I wasn't even prepared to get stuck on that. I thought we were going to go one step deeper, honestly. That seemed like I don't know, if I was like debating this in my head, I wouldn't even think about denying that part. It just seems like wild to disagree with that part when you disagree with the original part. That on top of the fact of like not agreeing with not only like the logical conclusions of the things that you actually believe, but also I don't know. I do not know. You know, partner? Well, also saying that like more black people in the future is specifically a good thing in fighting against white supremacy, but there being less is not, and it's neutral. Even though having sex with those people is by definition leading to less, and he said earlier that it was doing the bidding of white supremacy, and so therefore bad. I just don't know. And then like the agreement on that would be okay to do. I don't know, man. It just seemed like like you could say those sorts of things, like the sort of like inconsistency where like I can say this thing, but it's like about black people doing bad things, but that's black culture. I don't know, dude. I wouldn't like it seems racist to me to say like, oh, dude, criticizing hood culture is like that's criticizing black culture. Like, nah, dude. A lot of black people don't want to be in the hood. I don't think any of them really want to be in the hood. If I'm gonna be completely honest with you, it seems like people want to leave that area like as soon as possible. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Carb Van, thank you so much for the tier 1. How are you so good at playing this game while debating? I've just played the game for a while. That's about it. But I really appreciate you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the sub. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just don't know. And also Big Novocaine, thank you so much for the 3 months in a row. Is this the original Vosh? Yeah, it is. Also switching between black people and dark skin when it was convenient. Yeah, I felt that. I was like out of nowhere when we were talking, when I was digging in on like the dark skin. Oh, fuck. I accidentally used a blank. When we were digging in on the dark skin thing, all of a sudden things like switched to specifically black people, even though earlier he qualified that we're not talking about black people, we're talking about specifically dark skinned people. I don't know, he said that I was like conveniently switching between things. What guys, what do I do? What do I, is there anything better I could have done? Why gays are gentrifying black neighborhoods? I don't know, man. Like, there's anything I miss? I just don't, I don't know. I felt like after that was like the question that I wanted to bring up. Honestly, the whole thing when it came to would these things be different? Because if they viewed those things as just different, I just don't think that we would be able to continue on the conversation to be able to agree on anything, right? Like the idea that you can, that I don't know, it just feels like he was able to pick up on the prescription or something, or say that that was anti-blackness in one breath, but not on the other. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. You know? It feels like crazy double standard to me. And I mean, it's possible for you to just like accept the double standard and be like, yeah, I have double standards here. I don't know, man. Ooh, it's Samus's gun. Really should have just called him a hotep? No, that word wasn't even in my head while I was talking. The thing is just that like, and also the big thing, just like advice to anybody who wants to debate. You can easily call somebody something without actually, you can very easily call somebody something without actually like using the word, right? It's not that hard. Like if you're debating with like a racist person, like somebody that you actually think is racist, you could just describe racism without actually just saying the word, because then when you like say the word, then it's easy for them to like wiggle out and then change the subject and all those sorts of things. It's if you want to make that comparison, it's easy to let the audience make that comparison themselves. They'll be able to get it if you're good at debating. But I don't know, I just don't know what else I honestly like really could have done. He called you bad faith when you started losing. You could have called him on that. Like I could have. There was just like no need to, right? Like there's just no need to be like, because then it like changes from like a conversation to you're mad. You're mad. Which could be funny for like some discussions, but then like there's still things I wanted to talk about, so I wanted to be able to like get those down. I don't know, because I was talking to Aston Mac the other night. I was in like a discussion with Aston Mac the other night after like we had like a small back and forth on Twitter, and I asked him the same question about like the stereotypical black people like in the hood, saggy pants, bandanas on, bumping rap music in they lowrider, and me having the exact same verbiage as that tweet that I was criticizing. And he was like, I don't think that's bad, that's just black culture. And I was like, what? I was like, what? I don't I don't know. I don't know what to, I don't know what to, you know what I mean? Hood equals, that's what I was kind of thinking. I'm like, that's the part that sounds racist as fuck to me. I basically explained like the stereotypical depiction of a black person, and then they were like, actually, that's just black culture. Like, what? I don't know, man. Hood culture is worldwide. Listen, debating is a certified hood classic. That's what I was kind of thinking. I was like, this is kind of racist, right? I don't know, cause like I don't know, I felt like he was lost when it came to me talking about how, like, explaining why I don't think it's like as important when, like, if the same exact thing happens but because of two different reasons, I think that like is incredibly important, right? Like if somebody dies of old age or somebody dies because they're starved, I think those are two incredibly different things, even though you come to the same conclusion, which is somebody died. I think everybody can, I don't know, I feel like everybody can like pick that up, right? I thought at least. I don't know here. Let me pause. Let me go through chat like super quickly. At that point you won. Yeah, but this isn't about like winning necessarily. I actually wanted to like scoop into like the brain matter a little bit to see what I wanted to pop the hood and see what was going on. Cause it just seems, I don't know. Like I could understand that like some of the language, like when my discussion with Aston Mack, his big problem was like the language and how some of the language can be used to co-opt like white supremacist like notions about black people. I disagreed specifically because I wasn't talking about all black people. I was specifically talking about just like these types of black people. And I wish the question that I was able to get to, but I wasn't able to ask. We moved on. It was a question I also asked Aston Mack. It was like I don't know. My parents are just like this, except it's more hardcore. Yeah. That's like the big thing that I want to talk about. Well, at least a little bit, is the sort of like helicopter. This is like the most extreme form of like helicopter tiger parenting that you possibly can when it comes to you like trying to pressure your children to have sex with a specific type of person. That's just insanity to me. And it only leads to like worse things happening in your relationship with your like children. Common attitude among African parents. Yeah, and that's why like okay, I remember what I was going to say. I was going to, the question that I wanted to ask was that like, can I, is at any point in time, is it okay for me to say something like, this black person is exhibiting fatherless behavior? The same way, is there any point in time which I can say this woman is crazy? Like, can I say that? Right? Is that possible to say? Or is it always at all points in time either like racist or misogynist, I guess? But I guess I wouldn't be able to ask that question because he thinks that like being black is so fundamentally different than any other marginalized group that you could possibly be, that there's no way that you'd be able to even quantify them in any way, shape, or form, and they're not able to be like talked about in like any way. So I guess I wouldn't be able to get through to him or get like a solid answer out of that question either. I don't think he would just engage with the question at all, as unfortunate as it is, because I think it's a really important question, right? Because with Aston Mack, his problem with me was just like how some of the language could be used. His problem would be the same problem that we have when somebody goes like really in on calling like this bitch is crazy, like type thing, right? Which is a valid argument that you could have. I just don't think that every single time that you call, I just think that, some of these bitches are crazy, you know what I mean? Like, we can understand the misogyny there and how it's been used in the past, but some bitches are indeed crazy, right? Like, I do not support all women. Some of you bitches are very dumb. It's true. And so like I wanted to ask I really wanted to know, like, because if that was the case, where if it's just that I'm not allowed to say this no matter whenever, then it seems like the problem isn't specifically the way in which I use it. The problem would be me using it in the first place. But it seems like the answer would, for him, I would imagine the answer would just be no, that you're not allowed to say it, right? Some bitches are dumb is a feminist statement. Yeah, some of you bitches are very dumb is indeed a feminist statement. And I'm sorry, some black people do indeed exhibit fatherless behavior. They do. All right, it's everybody who subscribes to Fresh and Fit and Kevin Samuels. Okay. Whether or not you actually have a father, you are indeed exhibiting fatherless behavior. I don't know what to say. I don't. Does he think you aren't dark skinned? It felt like he was implying you were light skinned from the way that he talked with you on Twitter. Nah, he thinks that I'm doing the bidding of white supremacy and I'm like prejudiced against black people. That's what he thinks. The thing is just like, for anybody who's wondering, I think I explained it like perfectly fine, but again, it's not like I don't care at all about like being black. I enjoy it. I'm perfectly fine being black. I would not change if I had the no more Negro pill button. I would not press it. It's just when I think about it, it's just not a big part of like how I grew up or like who I am. Like I've been in those positions where, and it's like, I don't know, like we're going to be doing an article, we're going to be going over an article sometime soon about how like researchers were able to find a lot of cognitive bias even in preschoolers because they were able to see that they spent more time, they did eye tracking and they were able to spend more time watching the black like kid above like the white and other lighter skinned kids, and they pressed, and basically the study was like, watch these groups of kids and press a button when you see one of them doing something that you think is like wrong or like is like bad or needs to be reprimanded or like bad behavior, right? And like almost anytime like the black kid did anything, they were like hitting the button, right? Like they're just doing something wrong, right? And you know, I've even experienced this before. I remember being a little kid in art class, right? I was literally just vibing, doing like nothing was happening. And then I got like, I think my parents even remember this, like she was like writing a note like out loud, like as she was saying out loud everything I was doing wrong. I was making stars on like this little drawing that I was making, and then so I was like dotting the pencil to make like small like stars and stuff, and then she was like, oh, there he goes, slamming his pencil into his desk again and like writing stuff down for my parents. So like, here's your kid doing bad shit in class. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, lady? I'm drawing here. It's happened before, okay? So it's not like I've never experienced anything, any like prejudice or anything about being. Yeah, she is. She's one of the bitches who are very dumb. Yes, and so it's not like I've like never experienced any like prejudice because I'm being black or because of like I was black or something before. It's ridiculous. It's happened before. Sorry, Shark. It's okay. My parents knew that she was a dumb bitch, and they didn't like reprimand me or anything. They were just like, yeah, we got this note, but your teacher's a dumb bitch. Don't worry about it. You want a cookie? And I'm like, yeah. I remember getting like the talk from my parents when we were moving away from like Fort Knox into like other like Kentucky schools, and they were like, yo dude, like you're gonna have to work like twice as hard to be like recognized the same amount as like other kids in your area because you're like dark skinned, so they're gonna be like, so you're darker than eggshell, so you're gonna have to like work harder for the same results because they're gonna try and hold you back. I remember that.